The latest HPI, the house price index from Rightmove, has just arrived, and potentially it contains the first signs of seller panic or seller fear or seller capitulation. That's what we're going to be taking a look at in this video, and also a recap of some of the important data that we've seen over the past week or so that's potentially going to shape the rest of this year. So the first thing I'm going to do is take a look at this Rightmove HPI. I'm just going to read out some of the key pieces of information. So 1.9% summer price drop, and I've put a strike through the rest of the title as I don't believe it's accurate. The average new seller asking prices fall by 1.9%, that's over £7,000 this month, to just under £365,000, the biggest fall in August since 2018. Now, firstly, you guys know I'm not a huge fan of the Rightmove index, as it only focuses on asking prices, and it also only focuses on new listing asking prices. So it does not include all of the reductions that have been taking place on Rightmove over the past couple of months. So imagine how bad this figure would be if it included those reductions that have already taken place. This is only new listing prices. This does not include reductions. The average 5-year fixed mortgage rate is now 5.81%, falling from 6.08% this time just 3 weeks ago, and currently showing signs of an improving trend. That is something else I also disagree with. Yes, mortgage rates have softened slightly, but it's not a sign of an improving trend, which I'm going to come back to later on in this video. The number of sales being agreed is now 15% lower than the more normal 2019. So a lot of these indexes, or people that have a vested interest in house prices remaining high, are completely ignoring 2020, 2021, 2022 and comparing to 2019, as that was the slowest year we've had recently. Now, you can say that is going to give them a more realistic comparison, but you can't just completely disregard 3 years of data because it doesn't suit your agenda. The truth is that sales being agreed is massively lower than the past couple of years, and it's still down on 2019 as well. So whatever I don't know how far back they're going to keep going until maybe they find a year where things don't look too bad. But at the moment, we're 15% down on 2019 and much, much lower when you compare it to 2020, 2021 and 2022. And I haven't actually highlighted this, but although the first-time buyer sector is holding up better, so a positive spin, that is also still down 10% compared to 2019. There's no glut of homes for sale, as the number of available properties is still 10% lower than at this time in 2019. So again, this is just putting a positive spin on this. If we go over to Twitter, I think I've got this open somewhere here. This is Property Line. I bring this up quite often. And these guys have got the latest number of listings. They say there's not a glut of properties. Look at this line here. Let me just hide me quickly. Look at this line. From the peak last summer, the housing supply, the number of listings on Rightmove has shot up from just over 200,000 to fast approaching 450,000. Yet, when we go back to the Rightmove index, the positive spin is there's no glut of homes for sale when you compare it to 2019. The much larger than usual price drop, let's make sure you guys can still see that. The much larger than usual price drop this month indicates that some sellers are seizing the initiative and heeding their agent's advice to price competitively for their current local market conditions. Yep, fair enough. Lower asking prices, when combined with higher average earnings and the apparent downtrend in mortgage rates, are tentative steps on a journey towards better buyer affordability. Now, if we break down that last sentence, it isn't quite as clear cut as that. We've got combined with higher average earnings. Yes, earnings are up, but actually inflation adjusted earnings have basically been down for the past 2 years. And this month is the first time in about 2 years we've actually hit around about parity on that. And the apparent downtrend in mortgage rates are tentative steps on a journey towards better affordability. Like I mentioned earlier, I disagree with that. That's very short-lived, and I think mortgage rates aren't going to go much lower than they are and potentially going to turn back round and head up again very, very soon. So that is the latest from Rightmove. Now, if we look at this in a visual manner, you can see Rightmove is now also negative year on year. And when we spoke about this last month, we said it was only a matter of time before they dropped year on year into the negative territory. And it's only 0.1% in the negative, but it's still going in a clear direction, and it's just lagging Nationwide, who have been leading this way for the past few months. So we now have Nationwide negative, This is year on year. Halifax negative year on year. Rightmove just about negative year on year. And ONS, people that are not familiar with this will be asking, well, ONS are still showing growth year on year. The reason for that is the big lag. So these are the ONS prices that were released in August. And this is for data from June. So it's 2 months old already. And remember, these are completed sales, and the average completion time at the moment from accepting an offer is around about 4 months, which is an improvement on last year. Last year was about 5 months. So when you add the 2 month delay between reporting from June to August, or reporting June's figures in August, plus the 4 month delay from agreeing a sale to completion, that is a 6 month lag. And sure enough, do you remember what we saw about 6 months ago, around February, March time? We saw Nationwide and Halifax showing upticks because people were feeling a bit more confident. Mortgage rates were starting to come down after the crazy end to 2022. And we had this mini spring bounce where there was a bit of confidence returned to the market. So that's what we're seeing playing out. And ONS may show this for the next month or two before it continues its downward trajectory. So just remember, ONS is lagging pretty much by 6 months at all times. And if we just go back to the Rightmove index very quickly, I think what we can see here is a clear indicator of seller sentiment. So last year during the peak, if you look at the red line here, there was big price wars. So buyers were overbidding and paying over the asking price. So these were the asking prices on Rightmove, and then Nationwide, which was agreed sales at that point, you can see is above where the Rightmove asking prices were. And what we're seeing now is the opposite. So initially we've had the sellers unwilling to accept that the market is falling away from them, but now they're both heading very clearly in the same direction. But there's still a big disparity between what sellers think and what is actually happening with agreed sales. So it's all here to see in the charts. The market is only heading in one direction, and I see no reason why this is going to turn around anytime soon. Now, as I mentioned earlier on in this video, there was some text about how mortgage rates are going to be improving, but I just don't see that being the case. We had the recent inflation data, which was actually saw a lot of positive press around this, but ultimately the negative news within that was that the core inflation, or the services inflation, had actually gone up. So services inflation was up from 6.3 to 6.5, and I think core inflation was the same. If I've got it up here, I don't know. There we go. So core CPI rose by 6.9% in the 12 months to July 2023, unchanged from June. So core CPI went nowhere, and services inflation actually went up. So that is very worrying for the Bank of England. Now, on top of that, we also had the wage inflation data, which was at 7.8%. This is the highest regular annual growth rate since comparable records began in 2001. So on one hand, you've got the mainstream media celebrating the fact inflation is coming down, but core inflation hasn't come down, and wages are accelerating. So there's no way the Bank of England is going to look at this and say, we need to cut rates. The Bank of England is either going to hold or put rates up over the next few meetings. And when you know that the UK economy is service-based, so the services industries accounted for 79% of total UK GDP and 83% of employment in January to March 2023. So over the past year, we've gone from inflation being caused by the cost of goods that we were bringing into the country. That's starting to correct itself, and the cost of energy is starting to come down. But core inflation, which is basically this wage spiral, which is employees turning around to their boss and saying, look, the cost of living is so high, I need a bigger than usual pay increase. And bosses are going, yeah, okay, we'll give you the increase. And because the UK is 80% services, the cost of services has gone up. So now we've got our own inflation spiral, which isn't being caused as much by external factors. It might have been the catalyst at the start, but now the inflation problem is very much our own. So that is much more difficult to predict where that is going to go. And that was reflected in the swaps. As you can see, we are still near, not all-time highs, but for the highs that we've seen over the past decade or so. We had that little bit of good news after the inflation data from a month or so ago, and this is how the markets reacted over the past week. So we're very much heading back up. That's why I think when Rightmove talk about the fact affordability is improving because mortgages are coming down, that is short-lived, it's short-sighted, I think the mortgages are going to plateau and potentially continue going back up, because all the time that core inflation is sticky and wages are going up, there is no way the Bank of England is going to be cutting that base rate. So I still believe at this point in the cycle, and the Rightmove data backs this up. This is the psychology of the market that we talked about a couple of weeks ago. I still believe we're here. We've gone through the summer peak in 2022. We've gone through the denial at the end of 2022. We've gone through the return to normal spring bounce that we saw. And now we're at fear and into capitulation. And that is potentially being reflected in the fact that house prices or asking prices for new listings are down 1.9% month on month. And I see no signs of that improving throughout the rest of the year. Now, if you're not following me on Twitter, you can follow me at Darren the Degen. I'll pop a link to the Twitter profile in the pinned top comment. If you found this video helpful, I'd appreciate you scroll down and hit the like button. If you want to see more from me, subscribe to the channel. And if you want to see just how big I think this house price crash is going to be, I'm going to pop up a video in front of me now, and I'll see you guys over there.